Hello? Hello? Ah, hello, yes. Yes, hello, I couldn't hear you there. Yes, it's Paul Foot speaking. This is to introduce my new podcast. As you know, there hasn't been a podcast for a while. Don't go on at me about it, there just hasn't. But now I'm back, and this podcast you're about to hear is with Pigeon Peter and Silly Matthew. That's the only podcast with them because they were shot. But I will be starting a new podcast shortly, and there's going to be a lot of excitement because some of it is going to be on the live video cast and all sorts of technical things of great excitement. So anyway, you must listen to the podcast. You must listen both to this podcast that you're about to hear as soon as I finish this introduction, and also to the other podcasts that will come out soon. So there's no point in my speaking any longer because I'm simply delaying the podcast in which I talk a load of nonsense for up to 35 minutes. So let us start the nonsense now. We don't want no more nonsense from me now. We want the nonsense from the podcast. Not this nonsense, the other nonsense. So this introduction is now concluding. Greetings. This is Paul Foot speaking. Welcome to the podcast. Now, as you will know, those of you who listen regularly to my podcast, there has not been a podcast for a while. This has been due to a chain of events. But now I'm back with a new podcast, and the new name of the podcast is the Pigeoncast. Many of those of you who've heard before will remember some of the old casts, the snake cast, the dove cast, and the kestrel cast. But now it's the pigeon cast. And I'm joined by some new people in the pigeon cast. You will remember Tom Mayhew as my regular podcast partner. He's currently busy with his career. Now I'm with some new people. One of the people is called Matthew Wet, and the other one is called Peter Gilmar. They are not speaking yet because I'm still doing the introduction. They will speak later when I finish the introduction. Now, a lot of you will be wondering, what is the content of the Pigeoncast? What do we learn in the Pigeoncast? What do we discuss? Well, I see it very much as the tale of three sad pigeons from the pigeon village. And we will learn more about the three pigeons. I am the father pigeon, and I have two pigeon children, little Matthew and little Peter. My two pigeon children. My pigeon wife, unfortunately, flew into a barbed wire instead. So it is very much a case of me, Paul Foot. Yes, that's right. I may be a pigeon, but in the pigeon world I'm still called Paul Foot. That is my pigeon name. And my two little children. And in the Pigeoncast you will hear about the things that we pigeons have got up to. Some of the scrapes, some of the interactions with humans and with other animals. We will hear Petier. He often has run-ins with the squirrels. And recently was linked to one of the squirrels in a sexual way in a well. He went down a well with a squirrel for a week. I will be wanting to know from my son what he's been doing, and I will be asking harsh questions. My other son, Mathieu, he has been running his own business. He's been running his own venison business, venison sausages, venison steaks. But as just a pigeon, does he really have the ability either to catch a venison, or indeed, as just a mere pigeon, does he have the intellect to do the complex admin and marketing that's necessary in a business? That'll be the question I'll be asking him. I would say the more serious of my two sons. Petier is the one who is the wayward son. When he was younger, we often thought that he had difficulties. Of course, also, my two sons, of course, I must be easy with them, not too harsh with the questions, because they are still reeling from the death of their mother, who flew into the barbed wire just 5 minutes ago, before the Pigeoncast started. They're still reeling from their deaths. Now, let's go over to one of my sons, Petier. He has already become hysterical. And I wonder whether it's because he's got a lot to hide. Petier, my son, my pigeon, my little pigeon son. I remember when I used to take you under my wing, literally. I would hold you under my wing and hold you against my pigeon body when you were nothing more than a tiny, snivelling, cold pigeon puppy. You were a little tiny puppy, and you were very unwell as a child, and I never thought you would achieve much. You were, when you went to school, of a nervous disposition, and also intellectually well behind the other pigeons. And you never got a proper job, and you never really found your way in life. More recently, you've been found out having a 1-week session with a squirrel down a well. So, I'm wanting to know, Petier, what you've been up to lately, and can you explain to me your father, and try to put out of your mind for a moment the tragic death of your mother, who went into barbed wire just 5 minutes before the Pigeoncast started. Try to put that out of your mind. As you know, we will have to take her pigeon body and bury it under the dandelions. But that we can do after the Pigeoncast. For the moment, I want to know what you've been up to lately, and I want to hear something of your state of mind. Speak to me, son.
The longer I leave it, the more insane Paul Foot sounds. That was an amazing intro, Paul.
That was the introduction to the Pigeoncast.
That was incredible. That was 4 minutes of just...
4 minutes? That was more than that.
More than that?
Yeah.
Oh, my internal timer said 4 minutes. That felt like 4 or 5 minutes of just pure freestyle insanity.
Yes.
And, you know, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to be the pigeon boy, or do you want me to talk like normal Peter? Or
And am I allowed to speak, because I haven't been introduced?
Mathieu, you can speak. Yes. No, yes. So what would you like to speak of? Would you like to speak of the business?
My business?
Yes.
Yeah, we can talk a bit about that if you want to.
The venison.
Why would I not? The venison business, yeah. So I've been very successful
Yes.
in selling different kinds of venison meats around the UK area.
How do you kill the venison when you are just a pigeon?
I guess the same way that a pigeon would kill any other animal.
By pecking them.
Pecking it slowly.
If only the loss of our mother didn't disturb us so.
Ah, it's my son. Speaking in his old ways.
I tried to be normal, Daddy, but I couldn't keep it up.
Oh.
I'm a pigeon. Matthew, join us.
I'm also a pigeon, don't you know?
Tell Daddy about the venison business.
Did you know that I like venison sausages because I'm a pigeon?
I didn't know that, Mother. Do you like to have the sausages?
If you know what I mean.
I'm afraid I don't know what you mean.
People say that pigeons shouldn't eat sausages. They do. I'm telling you, they say that we shouldn't eat the sausages, but they can. Us pigeon folks, we certainly can.
Oh, do you help at the business, Petia, with the venison?
Of course, but I would never eat a sausage.
Yes, you
Matthew.
He's lying. I fed him my sausage just earlier today.
That is a euphemism. We are talking about actual venison sausages.
Well, you say you're helping the business, Petia, but what were you doing last week for the business when you were spending your time kissing a squirrel down the well?
I shan't hear a bad word about him. You know, I was just
How
doing...
old was your squirrel boyfriend? Don't you deny it. He deserves respect.
4, which is plenty old for a squirrel. Or is it?
It's not. A squirrel should always be a minimum of 4.5.
It was
What happens between 4 and 4.5?
The squirrel gets the tail gets bushier, and the tail goes from a low angle. The young squirrel will have the tail just gradually hanging over some ivy.
The squirrel puberty.
Yes, but then when it gets to 4.5, the tail will rise up, all bushy and strong.
And then he's not fresh anymore.
It is
I like
forbidden.
them before that. Caca.
Now, let us talk about your mother. As you will know, she died. She went into barbed wire.
Very sad.
Yes. What were your thoughts of your mother? Did you like her?
I always hated her, if I'm honest.
Yes, I agree. She was very distant.
Very distant.
We didn't see her very often, and she would often go away on her own thoughts.
She was with many of the pigeon menfolk. She went for the ones with the buddyish of hair.
Yes, I have not had sex with your mother for 20 years.
Are you my father?
Well, yes, how old are you? You, of course, are a 6-year-old pigeon. You, my son, are just a 5-year-old pigeon. But you were born using the artificial methods. Yes.
Really?
We're pigeon tube babies.
Yes, I had the in vitro pigeon fertilization. Yes, I could not bear to get near your mother in that way.
I thought you laid an egg like all the other pigeons.
Ah, yes, I forgot that. Yes, I laid it. Well, she laid the egg, being the mother, but I did my business round the back of Morrison's, and it was taken away by experts and made into the fertile eggs. You, my beautiful son, were born 6 years ago. I remember when the egg plopped out. It looked such a beautiful egg, such a lovely colour, the pigeon egg, of course, is a green colour, bright green. And a few short weeks later, you came out. You ate all your yolk and your white, and you came out. And that is what is inside an egg, boy.
Is that really how eggs happen, Daddy?
Yes, of
I
course.
always thought a yolk was an aborted chicken fetus.
You're saying that the egg, Matthew's egg, had him in it, and also yolk and white, and Matthew ate the yolk and white?
Sounds like
That's
something that isn't true.
And it had chocolate round it. It was a cream egg. It came from a beautiful cream egg.
That makes more sense. Thank you for clarifying, Daddy.
Yes.
Have we established that you are a father?
I am your father, and in this podcast, I will prove it using DNA.
Oh.
Yes, we will take the DNA samples, and we will prove I'm your father.
Hooray!
I've had no father for 6 years, and you swan back in and tell me that you've been my father this whole time?
Swan back in? There's only one person who was swanning back in, and that was your mother, who we've not seen for years, who decided to fly back, but of course she did not know the route, and she went into the barbed wire. I have been in your life every day. Who was it who took you to pigeon school daily?
You may have been in my life, but you never admitted the truth until now.
What is the truth? That I'm your father?
Little Lou Late, don't you think you could have told me that many moons ago?
Yes, I admit it. I admit that I pretended to be your caretaker from this local school. And later, I pretended to be your lover.
And I wondered why you switched between the two.
But we always knew the truth, that you were at the Gravy Club eating marmalade.
Yes, that's right. I would spend a lot of time in the Gravy Club. The Gravy Club, of course, is a lovely place.
You'd assume you'd be eating gravy there, but no!
We should have known, it runs in the family. Going to the Gravy Club and eating marmalade, it stretches back from pigeon to pigeon for generations.
Are you telling me that you often go to the Gravy Club and eat marmalade?
I am coming out now, Paul.
Because if so, then if you're the person who goes every week eating marmalade at the Gravy Club, that means that, unbeknownst to both of us, we have both been wearing the gimp mask and whipping each other at the Gravy Club in
No.
the S&M session.
No.
Now, I am
The
hoping...
pigeon I was doing that with had a purple balaclava on.
Yes, that is me.
It can't be.
It is.
It can't.
I'm hoping that when the DNA test comes back, that I'll be proven not to be your father after all, otherwise it would be very embarrassing.
I have my own pigeon children. If I do the DNA test and find that you are their grandfather...
I hope not, because I have made love to them all, and I do not want them to find out I'm also their grandpa.
You will be their father and their grandfather.
Well, yes. What? I will not be their father? How do you work that one out? I will be their grandfather and lover. But, as I will prove with DNA testing later on in this podcast, I'm not your father. No. Your mother was your father. Your mother who you thought was dead. Your mother? Have we got a message?
There's Theo Lukens. He has written the message upon the internet, which is written as so. What on earth is going on here?
I wish I could read human writing.
I can. I spend many of my pigeon years wasting them to learn to speak the language of the humans.
It's the Pigeoncast, dear. is my answer. Do they not understand that we are trying to solve some pigeon problems?
We are pigeons. Oh!
Now, we have a lot to solve, as you know. As I was saying, your mother, who came and fell into the barbed wire, is in fact your father. I lied, saying that she was your mother. It was your real father.
If she is my father and you're my father, then who on earth was my mother?
Your mother? Your mother? Well... Petier? Have you got some...
It can't be him. He's my brother. Is it true, Patier? Are you my mother?
Yes and no. You were adopted.
No.
Yes.
It shan't be true. I have video footage of my pigeon birth. There is video footage of my green cream egg.
I
coming
laid
out.
an egg and your father pigeon sexed it, whatever that means.
He shan't have sexed the green cream egg.
But it wasn't you.
It wasn't me inside the egg.
We found your egg elsewhere.
Where?
Elsewhere.
Where, father?
Elsewhere.
In the golf course.
Of course. That's what I should have expected.
Have you ever wondered why you can turn your head 360 degrees?
I'm not an owl. All my life I've been taunted by the children at the pigeon school, telling me that I am an owl, that I have an owl's neck, an owl's face, and an owl's beak. I've had enough of you calling me an owl all day long. We all know the truth. We all like to avoid it, but I know the truth. I am a pigeon who happens to be half swan.
You were born an owl, son.
You are our son, and you are
My brother.
a beautiful barn owl. Now, we interrupt the Pigeoncast at this point because, unfortunately, we do have to tell you the sad live news that there's been a serious accident on the Gymkhana field. Well, let's find out more about the tragic dressage accident. As we know, Lucinda has been ripped apart by Bracken
Rectally.
and we heard the voice there of our correspondent, our Gloucestershire rectum correspondent, Buttocks O'Reilly. So, Buttocks O'Reilly, you were obviously at the scene at the time.
That's right, Paul.
What did you see, Buttocks?
Thank you, Paul. Yes, I am here at the scene, and it's beyond words. It's beyond words.
Yeah, I mean, it must have been a real shock for the crowd when she went over the fence and won.
She was going at such a speed, Paul.
Yeah,
Such a speed. When she caught on that branch, she was just... It was just a pink mist, Paul. You couldn't differentiate between the air and her. It was just pink, Paul.
And I understand that one buttock sort of went east and one went, well, sort of in a southwesterly direction.
I couldn't even differentiate directions, Paul. It was just everywhere. Everywhere you look was buttock. This has been buttock. Over to you.
Vinny Vaginal here, and I would like to just chime in.
Vinny, hi Vinny.
There's a lot of talk here about rectums and rectal injuries and pink mist from the rectum, and I believe we're really missing the point on this tragedy. This tragedy really, in my opinion, is a vaginal tragedy, and I would like to point out that the vaginal tragedy here is the main tragedy which we should be focusing on, because it was ripped from left to right.
Thanks, Vinny.
Yes, thank you, Vinny. Thank you for that.
Do you have anything to add to that, Rector O'Reilly?
But buttocks, O'Reilly. Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir.
That
During
was-
this tragedy, there is no time for joking about my name, sir.
Buttocks O'Reilly, I submit to you that you are nothing more than a fraudster. You previously corresponded under the pseudonym Rectal Johnson.
He is a one issue journalist. All he cares about is the rectum.
You're a
He's-
one-trick pony.
He doesn't care about anything else. Every tragedy, all he cares about is the rectal issues. And there are so many more issues than just the rectal issues. Rectal O'Reilly.
I'm not gonna sit here and listen to you slander my name, making jokes during this time of great crisis.
I will not deny that the rectal crisis of 2017 is a crisis which we must take seriously, but I'm not about to stand here and let you talk all over the vaginal issues which we face as a human species, because that issue is the great issue of our era, and we must not be blindsided just because the rectum is behind and just because you see it in front of you.
My personal issues and regarding my name change recently has nothing to do with the crisis that is unfolding here before my eyes. There is still brown pink mist raining down in front of me as the anus has been torn asunder.
The only reason you are so interested in the rectal issues, and I'm going to say it, is because you have a rectal issue of your own. I believe you need to come clean to the public and admit this so that we can all move on, because you have become hung up on the rectal issues more than anything else just because you are ashamed that you do not have a rectum. You desperately wish that you did. You become a rectal reporter. Just because you don't have your own rectum does not mean that you need to dedicate your life to the issues of rectums for others.
Buttocks O'Reilly, you have got a lovely pair of trouser peaches.
Thank you. That is what I was here to talk about in the first
Those-
place, and I wish we could focus on that and not the slanderous allegations that you have brought forward.
Those are not real trouser peaches, I would like to point out. Those, I must tell you, and I know this is shocking news, are actually actual peaches, which he stores down his trousers to appear to have a rectum, which he does not have. He actually vomits poo out from his mouth.
Now is not the time to talk about that. If you want to discuss that, you can follow me on Twitter at Dick Cocklington.
So, let's get back to the pigeon sanctuary, where a complex love triangle is reaching its crescendo.
I had no idea this was a news program.
That was quite interesting, what I just learned about my favourite reporter, Buttocks O'Reilly.
Yes, Buttocks O'Reilly is nothing more than a fraud.
That's going to go down as quite the story in the pigeon community, I shall tell you.
I never tune in to hear Buttocks. I have no interest in hearing what he has to say.
That Buttocks O'Reilly is a fraudster and a scam, and he's a shame to the giraffe race.
Now, Matthew, I'm your mother and brother and etc. And I shan't hear you speak ill of the dead.
Ooh.
Caw.
But we interrupt this program because we have dramatic news coming to us from the seabed. And at the bottom of the seabed, we have a crab, a jellyfish, and a carp.
Bloop.
And they are involved in a dispute over land. Now, as the senior crab, I've ruled over this blowhole for several years. Of course, we're right at the bottom of the seabed where a little bit of water sometimes blasts out hot water from under the earth from volcano. And I love to get the heat on me. And there's lots of plankton I can eat because of the heat. Now, we have the carp.
Hello, I'm Mr. the Carp.
The carp has started to poke his nose around my blowhole,
A very nice little blue hole. I poke.
as has the jellyfish.
What's up, bitch? I'm a fucking jellyfish, bitch. I always have to say that, because people don't believe me that a jellyfish can have a voice like this.
I love you.
You love me?
Yes,
I'll make you love me, bitch.
please.
I'm a gay jellyfish.
I am not, but I still love you.
But I don't give the impression I am, other than the fact that I say that I am.
I am a female.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm bi jellyfish.
You jelly bi.
What kind of voice is this? What would you say this accent is? Without looking at me, without saying it's a jellyfish accent, what kind of voice would you say this is?
Carp.
Yes. 2 carps there. Well, 1 jellyfish who is very much carp at heart, and 1 carp having an
goddamn right.
argument.
He is culturally a carpulate in my culture.
Yes. It suits me for them to argue, because while they are arguing, I can be eating the best of the plankton from my blowhole without the threats from these 2 other creatures. Now we're going to find the conclusion, because we know we've got 3 birds, 1 allegedly a barn owl, 1 a toucan, that's right, 1 a humble pigeon. DNA tests probably needed. Doubts over the status of the various birds. Now, let us, as we prepare to solve the mystery, cast our minds to some of the other characters, because the story of Lucinda, the story of the crab and jellyfish were not for nothing. Those characters tell us something of the characters in this scenario. As we will hear in the climax of the story, the barn owl is cast out from the other animals. Well, that dramatic ending concludes the Pigeoncast. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.